teach the controversy. Maybe it's flat, maybe it's round, Nick. I don't know. I've never seen
That's
it.
what she said.
But neither of you. Maybe it is.
Tune it.
This episode is made possible by our therapy partner, Dirty B. From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. And I promise that this show will have more direction in it than the Patreon part of the show did.
Doubt it.
Nope.
Only
And
if the
now-
weather's involved.
Broadcasting from the churn. That's Dr. Jim. That's Whitney. I'm Nick. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
What up, everybody? It's Pod Therapy. Go to votejim.net.
Nope.
Every day,
No.
every device.
No. You used both of them
No.
last time.
Yeah.
So
I'm borrowing
you used
Nobody
against
heard
October.
that. Nobody
That's
heard
all.
Also, you already did it. You did it
Yeah.
last year.
I did it.
I don't know why you're trying again.
Why wouldn't you?
Because you can't
Michael
get better.
Jordan
You can
stop
only
at
get
one
worse.
ring? No. Tom
You
Brady
can
stop
only
at
get
one
worse.
ring? That's not true. You can win again. That's
Yeah.
what you climb back up the mountain. Vote Jim.
don't know.
Because the only reason you do it is so you can put the little winner of Best of Las Vegas thing
Yes.
on all of your advertising.
Mission accomplished.
Which you can do.
Now I need to stop others from being able to do it. It's not enough that I
That's
succeed.
my mission next year.
Others must fail.
Just saying that now.
That you're putting it out there
Oh,
now.
yeah. I'm
Just
putting it out
take
there
it.
now. I will begin my plotting
One of these
today.
days,
Yeah, 11
somebody,
months.
one of these days,
Yes.
somebody, because all I'm missing is a website.
It's gonna
So one of these
happen.
days, somebody's just going to make an audio guy life coaching website.
Yep. And you'll
And
be able
then
to
I'll win
compete.
Best of Las Vegas.
They
Yep.
can't stop you, so they don't care about any of the other competitors.
If somebody's interested in doing that, let's get it set for next year so we can beat Whitney.
Oh man!
Damn it.
Yeah, All the finalists are in this
And I'm
room.
like, I'm in it. Shit.
That would be great.
And you're out.
I also want to win just so I can, the next time I see Johnny Katz,
Oh yeah,
just so you can be like, what the? How the fuck did you win this?
I have a very successful life coaching enterprise.
That's right.
You're not aware? It's just crushing it. Welcome, everybody, to the show. We've got some great questions today. Don't forget about the extra goodies over at patreon.com/therapy. We've got new content that comes out every Monday. And this Monday, Nick, you released a new deep dive into a whole new study, classic psychology studies.
Yes, we did. I talked about the Little Albert experiment.
Yes.
Ooh.
Watson is an asshole.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
Man, from the time I was 13 till I was about 17, I did that Little Albert experiment a lot. I would experiment on Little Albert like 3-4 times a day.
Jesus.
Did he cry?
All day, every day. Oh, the chafing.
Science. Science.
Oh, there was a result.
There were conclusions had.
We wrote it down.
It was it was the longest episode I've done so
Yeah.
far.
Oh, wow.
Because to explain that
Was it 6
study-
hours long?
It was not. It was not. It was
Okay, sorry.
it's very reasonable.
You're a
very,
little under the record then.
very digestible.
Ah.
At the current time. But I had to explain that study, I had to actually go back and kind of explain like what was going on at the time.
Yeah.
Behaviorism, because
Right.
behaviorism was a new thing.
Right.
And it was a shift in psychology, and you kind of have to explain that piece. But then to even understand Albert's study, you have to understand classical conditioning.
That's
Right.
what I was thinking.
So
yeah.
you have to get into Pavlov, and you have to talk about that first. And so it took a little bit more time, but it was really interesting. And there's
Do you think Pavlov was one of those people who just walked around all the time being like, sup, dog? Sup,
he should have.
Mm-hmm.
He should have.
Smells like up dog.
What's up, dog? I love that office.
Yeah, he was trying to get everybody to say.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, The Office is so great.
No, but what's really interesting, because I'll give away a little bit of the ending here, because Watson lost his job. Not
Why?
over that,
Oh,
actually.
Okay.
No, it was because his graduate student who co-authored the study with him, he had an affair with her.
Oh,
of
and
course.
then went through a very messy divorce, and then Johns
That
Hopkins.
doesn't sound like the Watson I know.
no.
Johns Hopkins was like, all right, we're done with this.
Yeah,
And so
Johns
they let him go.
Hopkins, they'll stand idly by while you do absolutely unethical shit to
Abuse children.
But God help you if you get a divorce.
But-
Marriage is God's will.
There was nothing, there was no ethics board at that time.
Oh,
like everything
wow.
was new. But after he left that job, he went into advertising.
Oh, what?
And so a lot of the stuff, like, so he took a lot of what he had learned
Oh, wow.
and applied it into advertising. And so all of the stuff that, from advertisement that we see that started coming up around that time, all these scare tactics, that was Watson.
Wow.
Because Watson identified that there's like three main emotions. There's, fear, rage, and love. And so basically his advertising strategy is you have to tap into one of those things.
Wow.
So if you don't use Johnson & Johnson baby powder with your baby, your baby could easily be exposed to bacteria and disease and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so that was all his strategy that he took into the advertising world.
Oh, wow. What a douche.
Yep. Old J.B. Watson.
Yeah. So check it out. Patreon.com/therapy, all that goodies. And whenever you get in there, there's an entire directory of all the Patreon content we have ever produced, which you can just kind of thumb through. If there's topics you're interested in, we do all sorts of deep dives and explorations of different topics, book reviews. So lots of great content in there. And you could just, listen to whatever you want. If you're ever like, man, I really need help falling asleep. Patreon.com/therapy. That's why we do it. We got some great questions for this week's show. Let's start it off with Internet Rubbernecking by Plebeian J. Hello, Dr. Jacob, life coach Nick, and trainer Jim, and Tara West Whitney. After finally catching up with the backlog, I feel confident you've never addressed this topic on the show. I was born in 95 and was a latchkey kid who basically grew up alongside the internet, somewhere between millennials and Zoomers. Sometime after the mid-2000s, I kept running into shock video internet culture. Friends in middle school took a weird pride in knowing the different spin-offs comparable to Two Girls in One Cup. It wasn't always porn-related, often medical gore that I'll spare you the details of. Eventually,
What year were they born?
95.
Okay.
Eventually, we grew out of it, but knowing that side of the internet existed stayed in the back of my mind and resurfaced during that weird era of Twitter, where people were seeing random, unsolicited terrorist execution videos. The trouble is where I find myself now. 2 or 3 times a year, I'll find myself diving back into the content to the point I make myself sick or distraught. Hours-long deep dives on war footage, medical gore, crime scene footage from natural disasters, etc. Just a highlight reel of human suffering. There's no joy in this. As a pretty stoic guy, I've brought myself to nausea and tears with some of them. It's just this impulse, like staring at a bad car wreck or ruminating on my own mortality. It got especially bad when Russia invaded Ukraine and a flood of battlefield drone footage started showing up. So the main question I have, is it harmful to seek these things out? The worst side effect I've noticed from this is intrusive thoughts, maybe once a month, consisting of about an hour of talking to myself through what I saw some poor soul go through. I haven't experienced nightmares or lost sleep over this. I'm not spreading this content or inflicting what I saw on others. Honestly, I think this habit has helped me temper my reactions to my own stress. It almost makes day-to-day problems seem much smaller, and during a work emergency once, I felt it helped me keep a level head. Work incident, skip past I'm going to skip this because he describes how graphic the work incident was. Anyway, hope that wasn't too troubling to read to. Don't worry, it wasn't. We didn't. I self-censored some of the worst ones because I think I would bring Jim to tears. Yep. Keep up the good work. Plebeian J, my pronouns are he and him. Yeah, we have never had this kind of question before. It's a good one.
I have a question that's going to sound like I'm being a smartass.
All right, so it's a video. These 2 girls.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah. You need to here. I'll show you.
Okay.
I've emailed it to you several times. I don't know why you don't.
Will you please unblock Jim?
Yeah, Jesus.
No. Why would I unblock him?
The penis pills are great. And my Nigerian prince friend has been waiting for a reply. It's very rude.
He's getting impatient.
He's getting very impatient. He needs your help.
My not smart-ass question that sounds like a smart-ass question is only for the writer, not for other people who may be doing this. This is not a big picture question. This is a small picture question. What's the problem?
Okay, yeah.
Fair.
Because it sounds like the writer isn't having an issue with these things.
Right.
So there's a little bit of intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
But not causing depression. Like when I sit down and watch these videos, it bums me out.
Yeah.
I don't sit down and watch these videos because it just bums me out.
Yeah. I think the writer's pretty close to a problem. They're not maybe 2 feet on it yet, but they said they binge this in like a compulsive way to the point of nausea and tears. So it's almost like gagging yourself with your own finger and then wondering like, fuck, that was really uncomfortable. Why did I do that? Like, it seems like he's compulsively doing something that brings him bad things.
All right.
I mean, and I also see too that like just the idea of like watching that because of its content does seem like, oh, this is kind of scary. Like, is something wrong with me?
Yeah.
That I'm watching this.
See, but there's been this long debate in society of like, is this kind of material, gore, violent, the aftermath of violence, is it categorically harmful to human beings? Does it categorically cause humans to be a certain thing? And are only certain kinds of humans interested in seeing it? And I don't think that's true, because horror films and shoot 'em ups and like gore flicks are an entire form of the entertainment empire. I mean, when I was growing up, there was a series of movies called Faces of Death.
Yeah.
And it was just video of real people dying. And it was at Blockbuster.
It was mostly
What?
fake.
Oh, okay.
I was like,
Still not all.
But the theory of
It was billed as like,
right.
Because I thought as soon as you started
It's like
reading
Blair
the letter,
Witch Project?
that's why I stopped you and asked you what year.
Oh, yeah, because you were thinking about that series.
Because I was thinking about Faces of Death.
Yeah, but it obviously
heard of
appeals to a
this.
commercial market because there's something within humanity.
It would play like at the movie theater at midnight on Halloween
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was,
I'm gonna Google it.
It'd be
car accidents.
Car accidents. This was
and-
before like mainstream YouTubing internet. Like,
Sir, oh, yeah. No, this
yeah.
is...
So this
80s
is
and
how
90s.
you saw something that you weren't able to see on TV.
Yeah.
But it was-
And it was like you'd rent this movie.
I
and-
say mostly fake. It may have all been fake.
Probably was. I mean, sometimes it'd be like an animal passing or something like that. I mean, it was some pretty terrible stuff. But even like the early internet days, like when Plebeian writes about like there was that era of the internet where, yeah, I remember that, like really weird shit,
Yeah.
like videos of like people putting like cats in microwaves,
Oh,
and, like
yeah.
really
Yeah.
fucked up things. And it was like a very sophomoric thing that like adolescent boys would like show each other and be like, oh, dude, this is so gross. Like, look at what happened.
Yeah.
And the shit's dark. Like, obviously, it's not good for people. But I just want to acknowledge that morbid curiosity exists as a phenomenon among the general human population.
There's even
I
a
agree
name
with
for
that.
it.
There's
morbid
even a name
curiosity.
for it.
Yeah. And also, I think for some people, it is kind of cathartic in a way,
Yeah.
where it does sometimes help people kind of release tension or release stress or actually kind of, because sometimes we have this fear, like we're curious
Right.
about everything just by nature, but then also we're also conscious of our mortality.
Right.
We know we're going to die.
Right.
So we're very curious. We also know we're going to die. We don't know how, but it's like, it's kind of this weird
I'm
thing
pretty
of like,
sure I'm going to
we're-
die, but I don't know it.
I do. I am aware of when. Specifically you.
He's had it planned for months.
but it's like this fear and it's this anxiety that you have, but then you also are kind of curious about this. And
Right.
sometimes that can be very stressful. And sometimes watching, anything that's gruesome or any kind of content like that can, I guess, almost maybe provide a little bit of validation for like why you're afraid.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, because you're kind of confronting something
Yeah.
deep inside of yourself.
Yeah.
Like verifying you still feel sick when you watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. In a way.
Yeah.
Do either of y'all think there's a level of like desensitization involved in
Oh,
some of this though?
100%.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
when he asked, is it harmful to seek these things out? I'm like, I agree with all of the things shared. But I also am like, well, if you continue,
Right.
then there's a level of desensitization that I believe, if we're talking about, like some classical psychology theories, that I think is brought to light here, where you have to at least question, are you getting desensitized to some of this? I mean, you shared that there was an incident at work, and if I were there during that incident that Nick blacked out for Jim so he wouldn't have to see it, then I would have probably freaked out. I don't do blood well. So but yeah, it's like you're saying, oh well, it helped in this situation. Yeah, I guess it did, but also like where's the level where it might I don't know. What do y'all think about that?
I definitely
though?
think it's different people are affected in different ways. Because if you've ever had like an EMT or first responder patient, they've seen some shit.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
it is desensitizing, which allows them to be extremely professional in extremely scary environments.
Totally.
But at the same time, for many of them, it can be haunting as well.
Yeah.
Well, and I would agree too with, what your feedback is. And to the writer, I wouldn't say like, yeah, it may not be problematic at this time, but I wouldn't necessarily make this a regular thing, like, that you kind of continue to do, because that would be my fear too, is that you do become desensitized to it. And the thing that you were once curious about, or whatever its effect was, it was providing an effect, and now it no longer does.
Yeah.
So then do we have to step up the game? Like, do we have to look for something even more gruesome or what? I feel like that's a logical fear.
What an interesting phenomenon. Because I know I've had this happen where I'm watching something I don't want to see. And I'm aware of what this is going to be, whatever that video is or whatever the thing is. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't want to see this. But I can't look away.
Yeah.
And it's such a strange thing because then afterward, I'll be so upset at myself that I watched that.
Yeah.
And I'll think, and it keeps playing back in my head. And I'm like, I could have lived the rest of my life and not seen that. And it would have been better for it.
But your curiosity
But
got the best of you.
What a mesmerizing phenomenon that you can find yourself in a position where your eyes just, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Well,
like your eyes
it's
latch onto it.
It's that whole thing where, you're driving by a car accident.
Right.
Like,
You
can't
could
look
see
away.
something,
Yeah.
but you're like,
yeah,
It's so
everybody
strange.
just needs to look
and that's
at
why
it.
he calls it internet rubbernecking.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
title of the letter. Because you see this morbidity or
Yeah.
something terrifying. And
or sometimes even like I'll have experiences where I am thinking about something that I know is just, I should not be even looking that up or thinking about it, but your brain still goes there sometimes where you're like,
Right.
I wonder, and I'm like, no, like,
right.
I don't know. I think some of that is really natural.
Yeah.
To have your mind go
Going
places.
so far to the point where one is throwing up or one is crying because what you're seeing is so overwhelming. That I think is it. I'm kind of wrestling with that because I'm wondering about that a little bit because it's probably a step too far. So I'm going to say something knowing it is too far down the road, but just to suggest that direction is possible. It, in a similar way, kind of reminds me of self-harm. How there's a self-harm to release, right? A person describes self-harming as relieving, and yet they know what they are experiencing is harmful to them. It's bad for them. But there's something about doing that that gives them something too.
Yeah.
But they could also be causing harm. And in a similar way, again, I know it's too far, but adjacently, I wonder if this has that kind of phenomenon to it where you're doing something, you're indulging in something that is kind of cathartic and is kind of relieving, but is kind of damaging and is kind of sickening. And in the end is hurting you. And you go to the point where it hurts you too much.
Yeah.
And then you sort of repel from it again and realize, okay, fuck. Almost the way a cutter has gone too deep and realizes, oh, fuck, this is no longer relieving. I've really hurt myself. And then they freak out. I don't know. I mean, I wonder if that's a similar kind of vibe here.
Yeah, almost like self-punishment in some ways too.
It's
like,
interesting.
I'm to this point. I am sick of I'm making myself sick, but you're still going back to do it, knowing that could happen.
Right.
It's like really interesting.
Yeah, and going at it for hours and hours, going deeper into more and more brutal, more disturbing content. Going back to your point of desensitizing, that's interesting.
Yeah.
To need to keep going further until you gag, until you realize, oh, that's disgusting. That one was too far. It's definitely an interesting relationship with the content.
I think people can even do this to themselves without the use of internet or pictures or video. I mean, some people can do this just with their thoughts.
Yeah.
When you just kind of take your thoughts to like that deep, dark place and you just continue to feed into it and feed into it and feed into it until it kind of has a reaction. But I mean, overall, to the writer, I don't think anything, at this point is necessarily like wrong with you.
No. Nothing wrong.
I think this is, most of what you describe, I think is kind of just normal human nature. That's just kind of, like I said, when we are driving by a car accident, everybody wants to look.
Right.
Everybody has that instinct that they want to look. And part of that, I think, is, again, because like seeing something like that does have a survival mechanism,
Yeah.
like a purpose for survival.
Good point.
Because it's kind of like, if I see my friend get eaten by a lion, I've learned something.
Right.
You know? And so maybe that's just kind of remnants of that part of the brain that just
like
needs
seeking
to
survival.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like, let me see what happened to this person here so that I can improve my chances of survival.
Totally.
So I don't think there's anything that's odd or unusual about that, but I think there are some things that I would just be careful with.
Yeah, good. I think that's it. Because the writer says, hey, is this normal? I think you're hearing a unanimous yes. That's why it's a genre. That's why those videos do not have one hit. They have hundreds of millions. And there's a human fascination with death. It's also reality. We also are very interested in film and things that capture reality, true, authentic situations.
War is real. Accidents are real.
Right. Seeing war and death. And there's something about the competitive nature of survival that whoever I just saw in this video, these people that got bombed, they lost. They lost the game fully and finally. So there's something about that captures the human imagination. Now, another question that you didn't ask, but you kind of implied is this healthy for me? I think you're hearing us also say, kind of proceed with caution, because this definitely can become something that you're developing way too much desensitivity to. It could be an adjacent form of self-harm. It could, I don't see a lot of benefit to you. So I would worry about it long term.
Yeah.
Even if you're not having intrusive thoughts.
I would
right
have
now.
to say that the writer's reaction to it does seem like, okay, well, that's the type of reaction we would expect you to have.
Right. Yeah. You're repelled by it.
Yeah.
At some point.
I mean, as opposed to, not being repelled by it.
Right.
And being, really excited about it, then that I think maybe we'd be having a different conversation.
Well, and even that though, I mean, there's people that work at the morgue, there's
Sure.
people that can handle it.
Yeah.
And we don't look at those people and say there's something wrong about them. We say, no, you're part of the human spectrum. You're just not part of the curve, right? You're on the outliers of what you can handle. And a lot of that is desensitized, but yeah. So it's, this is your chance to become a mortician, I think is where I was going with that.
I know. I wonder what it would be like for them if they didn't do it for a week or a month or whatever. Well,
that was what I was trying to, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Because I was kind of thinking the same thing too. Like, did we get a frequency here? Because I almost kind of to me, it sounded like it was a once every couple, once or twice
2
a
or
year.
3 times a year.
Oh,
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's,
They find themselves diving
Yeah,
back
2 or 3
into
times a
it
year,
for hours
dive back
long.
into it, into a binge, couple of hours until they gag on it, and then they're just like, wow, and they stop. So,
okay.
I mean, again, nothing about this is abnormal. There's a reason these things exist. There's a lot of people that, dabble in this, and they watch until they can't. And that's exactly what happens. And that's the reaction is, whoa, too much, and then they pull away. So your reaction is well within the mean. But, I'm glad you're asking about it, writer.
Yeah.
I get the question. I think it's definitely something that we as a society now can indulge in that you couldn't in previous generations. Remember that movie Stand By Me?
yeah.
Yeah, the kid's going off just to see a dead body.
I was gonna say I've when I've had conversations with friends who are guys, that's something that's brought up a lot when they were young. They're saying yeah, we would torture a lizard or something.
Right.
They're really kind people now,
Right.
as far as I know.
Yeah.
But, really kind people now. Nothing outstanding there. He's just I think some of that's natural curiosity for children in general.
Yeah.
And some would say maybe slightly skewed gender wise, but yeah, for boys it's he was yeah, we would smush ants or
Right. No, burn anthills.
burn the anthill, or just things
Cause
like that.
death.
And he's just so you could you're seeing, do I feel bad when I do that? You're learning still. It's not you're
It's
a
a very
psychopath.
interesting
I was
thing.
oh,
Well,
okay.
even you think about the bodies exhibit here in Vegas. We have an entire exhibit that's a front stage attraction in Vegas, and it's dead people postured into positions to examine them. Wow. And that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
But they
of
were
dead
already
people.
And they were already dead. You don't know if they were gruesome. Did they die in their sleep peacefully in their warm bed? I don't know.
And there was a lot of, before you even write in, there's a lot of problems with the bodies exhibit.
Ooh, what?
It's like
I've only been once when it first came
lot of
out, like 8
Posing
years ago.
dead people for our entertainment
No,
has
no,
ethical problem?
No, there's bigger ethical problems than that, potentially. I don't know all the details, but it has to do with Chinese people who are in poverty that are then like kind
Scooped
of
up.
possibly being coerced into giving the body.
wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff
Yeah,
there that we
okay.
don't know about, so don't write into us about it.
Yeah, fair.
Fair enough.
All right.
Great question. Thank you for this one. Definitely a new one. I'm not even
Yeah.
sure what to title this
I
one.
love these internet questions
Yeah.
about the internet. That is like a new age. That's like,
Yeah.
how does this affect us?
Introduces a whole new reality.
Yeah.
We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about, does my therapist want me to come back? You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Smitty Scoop, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Mason Miller, Tess Miller, Dirty B, Byler T, Paris, Team Monaco, Oscar Swan Roast, Hannah Marie. And if you want to sponsor a show, become a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy. All right, we got some trivia that was submitted from Brandy. Here we go.
Ooh.
Hi, here's a game for your game trivia section.
Yay.
You will get 4 words, and you will have to guess the category of 4 of these words. So that's 3. All right. For example, ocean, sand, sun, SPF. The category would be
Beach.
Sunscreen.
beach. This is the correct answer. All right. There are a total of 13 questions. Divide them however you choose.
Are we
Answers
like
are
buzzing
at the
in
bottom.
or?
Oh, yeah. I think it's a buzz.
We buzz.
You got to say your own name, maybe?
Well, then I'm out because I can't because I
You see
have
all
to
the
read
things.
yeah,
them.
I'm reading all of them.
That
So,
sounds fair.
all right, here we go. Yesterday, help.
Buzz.
The Beatles.
Buzz. Fuck, I said buzz.
And I said the answer.
He did. So I feel that we both get to split
I'm
the point.
lost.
It's the Beatles. Go ahead
Oh.
and finish the category.
Blackbird.
Oh,
In the dead of night.
yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that one.
Okay.
'Kay.
Number 2, dice. Head, hands, tail feather.
Dice, head, hands, tail feather.
Huh.
It made Nick snort a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be like a casino thing. Dice, head, hands. Head, hands.
Is it a casino game like craps?
What's
or
that
something?
song where they say shake your tail
Shake
feather?
your tail.
I
Isn't that
believe it's
Nelly?
called tail feather.
Ah, there it is. So I don't think it's a Nelly song. Though Nelly did play at the M recently and apparently crushed.
Really?
Yes.
Love
They
that
said
for
lying around the
him.
building. I got nothing. I think I'm out on this one.
Same.
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you got? What's the answer?
Things you can shake.
God damn it.
Oh,
All
come
right.
on.
You were
All right.
close.
Yeah.
You were
Yeah.
closer than you thought you
All
were.
right.
Come on, let me see you shake a tail feather.
All right.
That's the Ray Charles song, not the Deli song.
Heart, home, courage, brain.
Heart, home,
Oh, that's a good one.
courage.
Oh, I should have played
brain.
along. I didn't think I was going to be.
Oh,
able to.
ding,
Things
ding,
that are
ding.
bad if they're too big.
Yeah, that's also true. Things that are desired from the Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Yay!
Nice.
Yes.
Damn. 1-1. I like this game.
Okay. Number 4. Paralysis, walk, tight, over.
Bridge.
Paralysis. Tight walk over. Tight?
Walk tight over. That was the order.
Type.
Paralysis walk tight over. Jesus.
This is such a good game when you know the
This-
answers.
It
Yeah,
is. I bet. I was like, I suck at
Paralysis.
this.
Walk.
Tight, over. 5, 4.
All right.
I'm
Thing
done. I don't
Superman.
No.
I got nothing. I don't know. Bad at this game.
Things that can follow sleep. Sleep paralysis, sleepwalk.
Oh,
Sleep
tight,
tight.
over.
Sleep
Sleep
over.
over.
Wow.
These are all
Damn,
different,
dude.
even though they're the same.
Yeah.
Brandy, you got to dumb these down.
Yeah.
We're not
Wow.
that good at trivia.
I was really happy about the Beatles.
Yeah,
I know, the Beatles
started
were
on
like,
strong.
Oh, yeah, we got this.
Yeah, we're off to a great start.
All right. Moving on.
Okay, you don't want to do number
No,
5?
we're going to, we'll,
Just split them up.
yep, split
Okay.
'em.
Okay.
All right, next question. Does my therapist want me to come back? Anonymous. Hey, y'all. That means everyone. I started going to therapy a few years ago when my mom was first diagnosed with cancer. I worked with someone for a while, but then my mom died, and I moved, so I found someone new. The therapist I've seen since I moved has been great. She really helped me work through my grief for my mom and for my dad when he suddenly remarried and we struggled in our relationship. My relationship currently with my dad is sort of at a standstill, but I've made peace with where we are and have some helpful tools for when I face something difficult. Overall, now, I'm doing great. I've gotten married, I have a dog, great friends, etc. Because I initially started going to therapy for a specific problem, I only would schedule sessions as I needed them. I have my sessions available through my employer EAP, and while they are limited, I still have many available. I guess my question is it okay if I keep going to therapy, even if I'm not actively working on something? I like talking to my therapist, but I feel like now I've built up that I always come when there's an issue. I'm not perfect. I'm sure there are other things we could work on, but I'm not sure what to bring up in future sessions, and I feel like it would be weird to schedule something without a purpose. I'm a listener, so apologies if you've already, or I'm a new listener, so apologies if you've already answered a similar question. I found you guys on the Reddit AMA. I've enjoyed the pod ever since. Thanks for what you do, Danielle.
Yay.
Oh, welcome to the show.
Yes.
We may have some differing opinions on this.
Maybe. Yeah, I have a feeling we do.
Really?
Yeah. I
I'm
already know where it's
curious.
going. I'll go last.
Okay, Jacob, you're first.
Oh,
You're meeting with a life coaching client.
Yes, sporadically.
They no longer
they don't
have anything specific to work on.
Yep.
But they pay the bill.
Yep.
Every time.
And they'd like
And
to
they,
keep coming back.
They enjoy your company.
yeah, great. Come on.
Come on
Yeah,
back.
that's
Come on
kind of my
down.
theory too.
Come on back.
Jacob's life coach
Okay.
emporium.
I'm gonna jump on board with life coach Jacob a little
yeah.
bit. The
On everything.
yes, from today moving forward.
Yep, Whitney and I just agree.
Just agreed across the board. So yeah, I kind of feel like if you feel like you want to, or dare I say need in some way, like, but even if you're not sure what you're working on, go talk to someone or see a therapist because it makes you feel better, or you can work through maybe more, I don't want to say like surface level, but lighter problems or lighter issues, day-to-day issues, things like that. Especially if you've already built rapport. I guess I'm not sure. Is this the same therapist?
Yeah, they're seeing the same one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going back to them, I think that's great. My only hang up, and I'm unsure about this with EAP, do you have to have a diagnosis
There's going to
like
be a
insurance?
code. I think
Well,
so.
a code is different than a diagnosis. Like the code is just how many minutes you meet.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I meant like an F code, not
But
a
an
CPT
F code. Yeah. So, because my thing is EAP isn't even called therapy. They just,
Right.
so
A lot of times it's just, here you go.
they're just here. These are
These are
is your
allotted
time.
and you can use them.
So
Yeah.
part of me is like, if it really is as simple as that and they don't, which again, they probably do, but if they don't require some sort of diagnosis, I can say, yeah, use them the way that you want to, because that's what they're there for, to help get through certain stressors, certain times, whatever. I don't think it's ethical for a therapist to ask a client to continue coming after they feel like they've resolved a lot of their issues.
Right.
That's like a different realm. But if you feel like it's helpful for you to come or continue seeing a therapist even periodically, and it's like approved through EAP, then absolutely, I think that's great.
Yeah. Nick?
Well, I don't think you should go to therapy just to go if you feel like you're not working on anything. However, I do think you are working on something, because maintenance is working on something.
Yeah.
So just because you've addressed or resolved these issues doesn't mean that they're not going to come back. So I think maintenance is a really important piece to long-term care. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're doing. So in a way, yes, I agree, but I agree in a way because not necessarily because I don't think you're not working on it.
Yeah.
I think you are working on something.
What would be
You
the
do have a purpose.
circumstances that you would say you're no longer doing maintenance, you should discontinue therapy?
I think when we're no longer really kind of discussing anything of relevance. I think,
if you're just hanging out.
Yeah, if you're just coming in because, I really like my therapist and we like to talk about it's football season coming up and he's a big football fan, so am I. So it's fun to come in and just kind of chit chat and talk and touch base. Then I think we're kind of starting to blur the lines between like therapist patient relationship into friend relationship. I think if you don't have a treatment plan, if you don't have something that you're actually working on and some objectives that we're actually striving towards, then I think it becomes counterproductive. I don't think it's a good use of time. And I think you then become too dependent even on this therapist. But I don't think that's happening in this case. Again, like
those are fair points to make, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the thing that we talk about all the time in like substance use disorder treatment, where we've resolved a lot of these issues, we've improved functioning, we're no longer seeing continuation of symptoms, but that doesn't mean that we're done necessarily,
right?
Because relapse occurs,
right?
All
Maybe
the
you're
time.
in remission,
exactly.
And let's keep it there.
And relapse occurs for mental health all the time.
Yeah.
So relapse prevention is a real thing to be working on. I guess the thing is I don't want it to become unfocused and completely directionless.
Fair.
I still always want it to kind of come back to, all right, what's our purpose? What's bringing us here? What are the things because I think the other thing that happens too is sometimes we lose focus and then we no longer can see progress. Like if I don't have any kind of landmarks identified in advance of what progress looks like for me, I'm not going to see it when it happens. Right. And so if we just like, okay, I completed my goals, I'm just going to come back and bullshit and chit chat and not have any kind of real focus of anything that I'm working on. How do we know if you're making any further progress? We don't. Like, so I always think we should always be setting landmarks. Like, okay, what's the next thing? And it may not be something new. It just may be a continuation. So, I've gone 2 months without having any panic attacks. Well, what's the next landmark? Well, 3 months.
Right.
And it's, we've got something that we're kind of working towards. So that's my thought.
I'm just. Jim's nodding at me like I have something to say, and I don't.
I assumed. I
mean, I could just talk.
What's neat about this question is it is something that we usually will give to grad school students and new graduates as a training exercise because there's a good conversation to be had because it introduces lots of different factors, right? There's the legal factor, there's an insurance fraud factor, there is an ethical factor, there is an expertise factor.
Yeah.
So whenever you're first going through grad school, when they give you this, they say, well, okay, if you're an insurance-based therapist, you've got an obligation because whenever you code, which I'm using that word to also refer to F codes.
Fair, yeah.
But diagnose would be another way to say it. You should diagnose fully and accurately, right? Mm-hmm. And so in theory, if we're all doing this perfect, then you're really rigorous about differential diagnostics and you're really looking for those exact criteria and you're really going to justify every single plank of your diagnosis, submit that to the payer, the almighty insurance, and now they will then fund the care. And this agreement is based on that honesty, right? Yeah. And so if the patient comes back and they do not present with symptoms that would merit the original diagnosis or a new one, in theory, for the insurance to pay, the therapist now must write something that the insurance would agree with. And this is an ethical dilemma for some therapists, or it's a question that we put to new therapists, which is, what would you do? And there are different schools of thought. There's one school of thought that says, our agreement is not involving the insurance. I believe that you benefit from care, and the fact that we now live in a system where this third party demands this of me does not ethically obligate me to do what they want me to do. I will do what the patient most wants. So I'm going to fudge my diagnosis a little bit and write like adjustment disorder or something like that. Yeah. That is pretty ambivalent. There's another school of thought that's very strict and says, no, you shouldn't fuck around. That's insurance fraud. You need to kick the patient to the curb. You should be denying patients care or desire whatever they want because they do not meet the strictest definition of the diagnosis. You don't want to do fraud to the insurance. So it's a really interesting question.
Is that last one an ethical thing on the therapist end, or is that just what the insurance company wants you to do?
That's what the insurance would want you to do. But then insurance fraud is a real thing. And so that's a good question. Like
that'd be like if someone did come in and want to talk about football the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah, I get. Sure, yeah.
You're not going to get busted for it.
And you just want to get paid because their copay is $0.
Right. And
they're just coming in.
We've seen that happen. Yeah. We've seen Medicaid clinics in Nevada
Medicaid's really big
that have milked
that.
the state for a lot of money. Seeing a bunch of people that never seem to get better and never seem to do anything, and they just have their roster of like friends and family that have Medicaid. And
it's more like that long-term care when they've met.
Yeah, and they just like buy them pizza and stuff and hang out. And
so this isn't what this is not what the writer's talking about.
Not
this
at
is people
all.
What you're talking about is people actively defrauding the system.
They are active.
Right.
So it's that's why I bring it up as an ethical and interesting question. Yeah. Now, as Whitney pointed out, in an EAP situation, you have a lot more liberty as a therapist because the expectation is not even that you have a diagnosis. A lot of EAP programs don't even ask.
Yeah.
They do not care. All you need to do is submit the bill.
Yeah.
And like you just get paid. It's designed for people to use the benefit.
That's cool.
So I agree. I think in that situation it's very interesting. Here's my, I think, technical answer to this. I defer to the therapist.
I was just going to say that. I was like, it's up to the therapist to guide that, though. It's like...
I defer to the professional.
That's kind of what you said with the treatment plan. So.
And this is usually the libertarian approach that I have to the profession generally, because a lot of people start to get into the weeds of this, and they're like, we should pass a law that governs all therapist behavior this way or that way, or we should always do X or Y. We should have boards examining this, or we should have insurances doing this, or whatever. You should... And I really dislike that. Yeah. And I've heard other therapists discuss this, and I've heard... supervisors try to teach interns and they'll say, always do X. And there's a prominent therapist that Nick and I know who very much preaches that and preaches like, as soon as the treatment plan is complete, kick them out, let's go, we're done, do not extend. If they want to come back, they can just start from zero again and come in diagnostically. That's the pure way. And I disagree with that. I disagree with that on principle, the same reasons you did, which is that I think therapy doesn't have to have a lock-on, heat-seeking approach to one specific problem. Yeah. I think it starts with one specific problem, and then often you end up with a wandering relationship that takes on all sorts of new territory in their life, and humans are always going through new adventures. Yeah. And to have a human that they come to, that they sit down with and digest their adventures, often in light of the original problem, whenever those things reemerge, I think is preventative medicine. And I think that's healthy and good, and we're ultimately maintaining people. But then secondarily, I defer to the therapist on the field because at the end of the day, I trust the colleague to know what's right for their patient. I have absolutely had patients where they are just coming back, and at some point I realize we are not attending to anything. There is nothing going on in their life. Even if some sessions nothing comes up, that's fine. Like I've had sessions, especially like if you work with men a lot. I'm actually doing a lot of research lately into like the different dynamics between what kinds of therapy seems to be most effective for men and like why men in general seem to fail at therapy, like why those rates are much lower of like attendance and success and completion of goals. And so like there's a lot of neat research about what kinds of interventions and approaches are actually much more like effective for men. But one of the things the literature is talking about is a roundabout approach that leaves room for like, it's okay to focus on the relationship. And so, we might just bullshit about fantasy football for 40 minutes.
But then they get pissed off at like their co-person. Right. You're like, wow, it sounds like a...
Well, yeah. So I mean, I've had sessions with men where I've bullshitted about fantasy football for 45 minutes and they didn't want to do therapy, but now that we're getting along, they like me. And in the end, they're like, they'll slip in something real. And you say something like, so, I guess I have been drinking a lot lately, man. If you're open to it, I'll talk about that next time. And I'd be like, great, but we earned that with 45 minutes of bullshit.
Right. Is that
you worked your way too?
I earned it, yeah.
Is that for a new client or a client that you've been meeting with for
I can see it in both.
2 years.
But so what I'm saying is if a session is used meandering and not talking about content, that's okay, as long as, I agree with you, in service of the greater good.
Yeah, because I still think, you as the therapist, that's not I'm just bullshitting about football.
Right.
You as the therapist, that's strategy.
Right.
You're being strategic. You have a purpose behind what you're doing, and you're driving it as we're connecting,
Right.
we're establishing rapport, we're getting familiar with each other because we're going to be talking about some heavy shit.
Right.
So it's all very strategic, which
Right.
I think is different
Yeah.
than
Yes.
completely different than if you were just actually just completely just talking about football.
Which is why I defer to the therapist on the
Yeah.
ground. And so if that therapist welcomes you back, then great. But every therapist has a different policy. Like,
That's
Whitney, I don't know
true.
how you run your practice. In mine, it is so open door because people can make their own appointments that I've had people that I've seen in January of 2019, and then they'll pop back in February of 2020, and they'll
Yeah.
pop back in March of 2023.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, hey. And like, I pull up my notes, I revise, I remember like, oh yeah, this was their situation. Okay, great. And we dive in, and it's like, I'm just their sporadic therapist every once in a while, whenever shit hits the fan in their life, or they just, and whatever, they're glad that I exist in their ecosystem. I'm fine with that. Even
Yeah.
though I know we're not going to pound out 8-session treatment plans and like execute, it's an open door. They can come back anytime.
Yeah, I do see that obviously more with my cash pay clients.
Right.
They
Because they don't have
will.
any restrictions.
Yeah, that's very fair. Now that you say that, the ones that have kind of left and popped back in tend to be my cash pay clients, and maybe that's because the clients I work with who are through insurance, maybe they're kind of aware that they can't just willy-nilly,
Right.
you know.
And there's going to be an authorization process.
Yeah.
And they need to generally stick
They may
to
be
it.
more hesitant or questioning that. I was going to ask, do you have any strategies when you feel like there is a stall in sessions, but you feel like there's more to it, like your spidey senses as a therapist, or like they're just having trouble opening up, typically a little more often with men. But do you have any strategies or like tools that you like
Getting
to
them
use for that?
talking about anything in life. And
Yeah.
so, my strategy with that, like a stall or a lock,
Yeah.
is the same strategy of what's the old metaphor of like a ship that's moving in the wrong direction is going to steer back in the right direction faster than one fucking tied to the harbor. So like as long
That's
as you're
a
moving,
long saying.
Yeah.
I don't think you.
Did you
I don't
know
think you
whole
nailed
quote,
that.
that whole quote goes on the poster.
Jacob's heard of it.
That was the
Jacob.
whole poster. Fucking tied to the harbor at the end. Put that whole quote on a poster, please. Discord. I'm looking at you. That's a motivational poster.
Nick, that's a T-shirt.
That's a T-shirt.
It only comes in extra large or larger.
It has
But
to
it is a
exist.
T-shirt.
It's for boats. But yeah, anything I can do to get momentum.
Yeah.
And so if we're going
Same.
to talk about your bowling team, if anything I can get you interested in, that you'll start the weather, I don't care. Because once we have momentum, then I can slightly brush against you into a new direction and say, yeah, so your bowling team's been doing really good. Does your wife ever go to that? Did she like ever ask you about it? Oh, not really, man. She doesn't really care.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So how are you guys doing? Well,
Yeah.
okay, there it is. Yeah, we opened the door and like
Yep.
got the momentum enough that you feel like you're just going to keep going now. And
Yeah.
that's the trick.
There's a favorite one I've been using lately. It's Esther Perel has a game, Where Should We Begin?
Oh.
Yeah, but it's like just cards. And
Okay.
I think she's made it to be like a game you can play with friends or whatever. And there are cards in there that are coded, which I pull these out to not use, that are like sexually based questions for your partner if you wanted to play with like a new partner.
So you took out all the fuck, marry, kill.
Yeah, it was like, what was your first kiss like? I'm like, nope.
These are great for Whitney's therapy sessions.
We're gonna
So
skip that
like,
one.
what's your kink?
Yeah, exactly. What was your first time having sex like? Oh, not today.
Let's both look up our favorite porn.
And then bill the insurance. So I'll pull those aside, but there's some really great ones in there that are like, what is a big lie that you've told or never shared?
yeah.
Or what's like your first memory? I don't know. It's
That's
stuff like
great.
that will be kind of random, but there's stuff under there.
Right.
And sometimes it'll lead to something. It's like, what is a conversation you're scared to have?
Oh, that's
And
great.
I was like, ooh. And the guy was like, oh, you know what? There was this thing that happened. And it led to like our whole session talking
That's
about this issue he had
fantastic.
on talking to a girl he used to date and he was struggling with. Anyway, it's like,
But you
yeah.
hit content.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, this is
I
really
use
helpful.
a similar set of cards for group.
Oh, yeah.
And
Groups,
that's
you
great,
got to have
especially
something.
whenever it's a cold open group. They've never done this before.
Oh, God,
like
yeah.
that corporate gig I was telling you guys about. I had to run groups all day long.
Mm.
I had like 7 groups of like 10 to 15. Never met these people before ever. I'm meeting them in their workplace. So that was a hard situation to just get into something meaningful.
Yeah.
Those cards were great. I just
Yeah.
passed them out cold. Everybody picked one. And then, we did it popcorn style. Like, you
Cool.
answer and then you get to pass it to somebody else that you know. And
Yeah.
there we go. And people are crying. Like we're hitting some really deep stuff.
Yes.
Because it's so cathartic and the questions are good guides. I love that kind of stuff.
So I love that. But when we talk about, I'm going back to my therapist and I don't really know if she wants me to come back. Definitely I think it's up to her or whoever your therapist is to guide you in that. They should be the ones to say, what are we working on?
Yeah.
What are your goals?
She'll
All of
welcome
that.
you back.
Yeah.
Like I'll always take you back.
Yeah.
But I might during that session explore what we're looking at.
Yes.
And I have had people that I realize but I'll still push them to define what we're doing.
Yeah.
I'll say, hey,
Why are you
let's drop
coming
some
back?
new goals.
Yeah.
What do you feel like we need to work on in this season of your life? And they might just say, I don't know, Jim, I don't have family. I don't have friends. You are the only compassionate person that knows about my life.
Yeah.
I need a place to talk. No, that's legitimate.
Yeah.
That's an absolutely fine use of therapy.
Yeah.
But now we've defined what that is because I want to make sure I'm supporting you.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, for the listeners, if your therapist ever does do that, it doesn't necessarily mean that your therapist feels like the therapy has gone directionless. It could also just be to kind of refresh or
As they
review
should.
treatment plan goals,
Yes.
Yeah.
objectives. It could also just be to make sure that we're touching base, that we're still on the same page. Because
Right.
sometimes, therapists aren't perfect, and sometimes we will misinterpret things, and sometimes we feel like progress is being made when maybe it's not.
Right.
And so we always want to come back to it and say, hey, let's review this for a second. Let's just see, on this journey where we are, and do you see yourself in the same place that I see you?
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah. But go on back. Go on
Yeah.
back. I think that's awesome. And, we've all had situations where we've said, hey, here's why I don't think maybe right now is a time in your life where you need this. Here's whenever you should come back. And that's fine. We'll teach you. Your therapist doesn't mind doing that, but you don't have to be afraid that like you're unwanted there.
Yeah.
We will not try to dissuade you from coming back by making you uncomfortable.
Maintenance.
That's not a thing.
Yeah, maintenance and relapse prevention is always going to be a good goal.
Yep.
Always
That's
something
always
to
a good
focus
one.
on.
We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about please remind me why I'm sober. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Smitty Scoop, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Mason Miller, Tess Miller, Dirty B, Byler T, Paris Team Monaco, Oscar Swanrose, and Hannah Marie.
All right, so it's a tie. 1-1. Jacob and I have one. He
Yes.
sucks.
And the big L.
Yes.
Big old goose egg.
Patreon.com/therapy. Sign up to become a therapy producer. Next question. Set of questions. Chandelier, mask, organ, boat.
Bing, Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
Correct.
Fuck yeah!
I was going to say Sia.
Boat took me an extra second.
Boat was
Boat,
the
yeah.
outlier on
Yeah.
that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I never actually saw it.
Phantom of
And you're dating Laura?
I
Well,
know.
I've only seen it a dozen or so times.
I'm sure. Steak, home, waffle, curly.
Types of
Fries?
fries.
I got that. I said fries at the same time.
Oh,
if
yeah.
it is fries.
Point for Whitney.
Good
I'll give
job,
it to
Whitney.
Whitney.
Yes!
I'll give it to Whitney.
I was like,
because
I
I'm
said
a
fries.
gentleman. Because
I got to
already
get one. I can't
so
have a
many
total
points.
goose egg.
Also,
Okay.
waffle fries, the superior fry.
I ate a waffle fry today.
Just
so-
one?
Waffle
Wow,
fries are solid.
the willpower you
A
have.
nice
is amazing.
spicy curly fry, though. It's hard to beat a nice spicy
you get
I
curly
like a
fry.
spicy
Spicy curly
sweet
fry.
potato fry. And I don't like sweet
Oh,
potato
yeah.
fries,
Sweet
but a
potato
spicy one
fries
is
can
good.
be curly?
A lot of places
No,
have a nice.
spicy.
Spicy. Why would you get spicy?
They're
A
so
lot of
good.
places have nice spicy curly fries.
Arby's is the only place I know that even has curly fries.
Don't they have spicy ones at Arby's?
I'm not aware.
I don't know.
I would not ask for it.
Okay.
Look, if it's not Arby's or on a Spirit flight,
Yeah,
just leave them
Don't
out.
know about
Arby's is the spirit of fast food
It
restaurants.
kind of is, yeah. All right.
You don't know what you're getting.
I feel like it's better than Spirit.
That's true. You actually get something.
You're gonna get what you order.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be great, but you're gonna get
You
it.
got something.
I think you guys might get this one.
There's hope.
Arby's.
Our,
We have the meats.
Belly, salsa, tap.
Dancing.
Yep.
oh,
got
nice,
it.
Damn.
nice.
Dude,
Dang,
salsa
that was
threw
good.
me way
Salsa did too,
off.
like food, belly, pork belly.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going
Belly.
foods.
Yeah, belly.
Yeah.
I was going to
Oh.
make football
too.
foods or something.
Yeah.
He said tap. I thought of beer.
Okay. Oh, you guys will definitely get this. Triple sec,
What you think?
Liquor.
Lime.
Mixers.
Margarita.
Got it.
Yeah,
God
that's
damn
my
it.
favorite
Yeah.
drink.
Tequila
That's my
and salt.
favorite
Wow,
drink.
we all have 2.
I'm
Yeah.
taking a comeback, guys.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
You
One of
came
the
back
deuces.
hard. All right.
All right.
We're full
Last
of the
one.
deuce.
Last one. And then we'll finish the rest off in the
Tiebreaker, people.
I've got the alcohol and the food under control. Sorry, go on.
Okay. War, turkey, call, feet.
Turkey.
Oh, wow.
Call.
Turkey
War,
leg,
turkey. Call, feet.
phone, long distance. I don't know.
What? War, turkey,
Feet.
call. Cold. Things that can
Cold
be cold.
feet.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
War, wow, yeah.
All right.
Fuck yes.
Cold call, okay.
Oh, the winning. All right. Good trivia. All right. Next question.
Is
Please
it?
remind me why I'm sober. Hi, guys. Gender inclusive guys.
Whoop.
I am a trying to recover alcoholic with a fair amount of success. When I set my mind to it, I can fairly easily adapt to a drink every 2 weekends game plan. However, there is a piece of my addiction that I've never truly understood, and it's a bane of my existence. Why do I feel like my best self when I'm drinking? Is there anything I can do to combat this thought? To be clear, I believe this is true, and not just a thought. I mean, sure, I've had negative consequences as a result of being drunk and have steadfastly continued until recently, but this is why I call myself an addict. But it just seems like I'm a better human while I'm drunk. I'm more happy-go-lucky. My mind isn't a constant source of anxiety and fear, which makes me much more amiable. Honestly, read Badeline, just not scared of other humans. Okay.
How about baseline?
There it
Oh,
is.
babe,
Thank
there
you.
you go.
Yeah.
I was like,
I laugh.
D and S key are very close to each other.
Yes.
Thank you. You're my computer.
Good catch.
Yeah.
I laugh and connect with others more easily. I'm engaged. I care about things. I make others laugh. And did I mention that I'm not scared of other humans? I've tried therapy before and was met with, you'll always have this social anxiety, so it's best we learn how to cope with it sort of conversations. So truly, why am I trying to be sober? I feel like I'm a very competent human being, maybe a little bit autistic, but who's keeping score really? And I believe that our number one goal as humans is to be the best human we can be. That is, be good to others and make them feel like they matter and they're important and that they're loved. If my constant social anxiety is impeding all of that, why am I trying to be sober? Thank y'all a bunch and love you all. Anonymous.
Ooh.
I'm keeping score, by the way.
Okay, Jacob is scorekeeper.
He has a whole tally
Yeah,
board
yeah.
over there for you.
Very
Writer.
elaborate.
The writer
Yeah.
asked who was keeping score. The answer is me.
Jacob, the
I'm
judge
keeping
of
score.
humanity.
Yep.
Is okay. I know I'm gonna let you guys run with this, but before that, I just want to ask: is that his addiction speaking? Like trying to justify stuff? I don't know. That was the thing that jumped out to me.
Good
first,
observation.
But I want to hear y'all's input more
My
than mine.
question about that, about what Whitney just said, is that from the writer's point of view or other people telling them
That's what I
that?
picked up on too. He didn't say, he goes, this isn't just a thought, it's true, but then didn't share if
Right.
anyone else noticed.
So we don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, are other people saying, hey, you're a better person, you're easier to deal with when you've had a few drinks? Or is that just your point of view on that?
Life coach Jacob's on it today.
Yeah. And I can tell you that sometimes what seems very obvious is not very obvious.
Yeah.
Because pretty much all of my clients, at least at some point in their using history, truly believed
yeah.
that they were the funniest people,
Yep.
that they were the nicest, kindest
Everybody
people.
I
likes me
dance the
better.
best
that
when I'm
everybody,
drunk.
I drive better after I've had a few drinks.
Yes.
All my
Yeah,
drunk
so-
friends like it when I'm
And
drunk.
honestly, and I've even had
Weird.
this happen in many groups when like they truly believed that.
Like
and
small groups?
It was like a family group.
Like
no,
mini,
like
mini groups?
what?
They're mini groups. They're not macro groups, they're mini groups.
Oh,
Ignore that. Go on.
I'll laugh later.
Thank you.
Family groups.
Yeah, so in like family groups where, you know, they will come out and they'll be saying all this stuff. And the family members will just be like, "What the fuck are you talking
Oh,
about?"
they'll be like, "You guys all were so happy
You
when
are
I'm
not
drinking."
funny.
That was the
Yeah,
best
and just like,
Thanksgiving
you
ever.
were the most
Yeah.
obnoxious. We hated
Everybody
you.
like, you ruined Thanksgiving. You
Yeah.
pissed in the turkey.
Yeah,
You're like,
and
no,
just-
that was hilarious.
And there's the
We hadn't
genuine
eaten it yet. It was the whole turkey.
the genuine shock
Yeah.
that my clients would have is just like, wait, what?
Right.
Wow.
No, and it's just a completely different perspective. Now, we don't know if
Yeah.
that's true for the writer. The
Sure.
writer could actually,
Well, they believe
this
it.
could be the case,
That's-
right?
they
certainly
we
believe it.
don't know.
Their
And
reality.
then we don't know what their evidence of that is. It might
So-
be that other people tell them that. We don't
Yeah.
know.
So I would just go with it. I'm just going
Sure.
to accept
Let's take
that.
it as real.
Accept that's actually the case.
Okay.
The thing that stuck out to me, the very first thing that stuck out to me was trying to recover. I'm a trying to recover alcoholic. So we're using the term alcoholic. The writer describes themselves as an addict and then says, when I set my mind to it, I can fairly easily adapt to a drink every 2 weekends game plan.
Which makes me think not in treatment alcoholic.
Well, which makes me think not alcoholic. Something doesn't fit there, because the idea, I mean, the main part of what happens with alcoholism is a loss of control. So it's really difficult to say that I describe myself under these terms. I have this condition, which is which, like I said, is described, which is it encompasses loss of control. Yet I can control my drinking to drink every 2 weekends.
I would argue for now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the way I would answer this is different now than it would be 15 years ago. I think my perspective on this has changed
Because of World War II.
Yes,
The Cold War and the cold turkey
Yeah.
from Thanksgiving.
Because
Sorry.
of the distance from World War II. The further we get, the more I
further-
think
yeah,
differently.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think because we look at it more as a continuum and less as like you've reached this threshold.
Right. It's not black or white anymore.
Yeah. And so there's that, number one. Number two, there is Jim's comment, which is like, yeah, you can do that now.
Right.
Like, I can go to the casino and play blackjack and probably stop and I'll be okay for now.
Yep.
But like anything that has this addictive potential, the more you continue to expose yourself to it, the more likely it is that it's going to get out of control.
Right.
And the fact that you're already using terms like addict, alcoholic to describe yourself tells me that you already understand that this is a
That's a good
behavior that is
point.
out of control.
Yeah.
So,
That's fair.
yeah.
It's Russian roulette. And so like every time if you've and the writer says, look, in my past, I have had negative consequences as a result of my drinking up until recently, where I finally got off the horse, right? And now here I am 2 feet on the ground. I'm thinking, you know what? That horse wasn't so bad. That's some addict fucking thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you right now, like, oh geez, my life was falling apart. I've had so many negative consequences. And now that I'm not experiencing them, I've convinced myself that I must really have master control over this shit.
Yeah.
Like, boy, that is exactly what the addict brain will tell you.
Well, yeah, because
I was never a problem at all.
It's like
Why'd
a
you
lot of-
kick me out? We were great. Like,
so
no.
both Whitney and Jim have described this addict voice.
Right.
And this is just, it's not a real thing. It's kind of metaphor.
Right.
So I used to love doing this all the time with my clients.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I remember this bit. Yeah.
Is to just kind of like, okay, you play you and I'll be your addict.
Yeah, sock puppets
Like,
and
I'll-
everything. It's
yeah.
really cute.
That's what those
Like-
socks were for?
Yeah.
Yes.
He was just wearing those.
I'll be the voice of your addiction. You be the voice of you. And I would do this kind of role play, and we would actually role play this whole thing. And because everything, once your addiction kind of starts talking to you, it sounds incredibly logical.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, those are some great points.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
But that's the lie. I mean, that's
My favorite
the
addict
strategy.
voice, one of my favorite, because this almost always happens, especially with alcohol. But people will hit, and it's such a great, predictable line. But they'll be sober for a little while, and they'll be like, "So Jim, I've been sober now for 3 weeks. Like, that's really great. Congratulations, we're doing really good." And, well, it occurred to me, Jim, alcoholics can't stop drinking.
I stopped. Therefore, I'm not an alcoholic.
before. I'm not an alcoholic. So I've realized great news. I can start drinking again.
Oh,
I clearly have
this is not
control.
real.
And I'm
Somebody-
like,
I like that logic a
you
lot.
were arrested on triple DUI. Like, I don't think that's what this is.
That
You're
is
facing
such good
5 to
logic.
10.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but like that's the thinking. And so, Ryder, we're not teasing you about that. We're highlighting the very complex reality. Here's one line. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I will say one thing though to that. When we are talking about this addictive voice, all right, hearing your addiction talk to you, this is the thing that is most challenging, is that your addiction doesn't have to lie.
Right.
Your addiction can be 100% honest, and it can make some great points, and it can be correct in a lot of the shit that it's saying. And some of the stuff that you're saying, I believe is 100% correct.
Right.
I do believe that you are more outgoing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do believe
People enjoy you more.
Yep. I do believe you're more engaged with other people. I do believe that you have a better sense of control over your fear and your anxiety.
Right.
I believe all of that.
Yeah.
And in the same way that Joe Walsh was a great guitar player when he was completely shit-faced.
Right. Right.
But that's one of the things is like, then once you stop drinking, you have to relearn that stuff.
Right.
And that's, I think, the most important point is that doesn't mean that you have to have alcohol to do those things.
Right.
It means you learned how to do those things in that state.
Yes.
And then you have to, this is state dependent learning.
Right.
I
Now-
like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, part of it is
Perspective.
state dependent learning. Part of it is just the fact that
chemicals.
alcohol is a
Chemical.
natural. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a,
Inhibitor,
yeah. It's
Analgesic. You feel
so-
great. It numbs you.
It's
But
a
no,
social lubricant.
You're knocking on the exact line of this letter that that concerned me the most, where the writer says, what is the definition? He said the point of life, right? The point of life is to be a good human or the best human you can be. And then they defined that as making other people happy. So they said, one goal as humans is to be the best human we can be. That is to be good to others and make them feel like they matter and they're important and that they're loved. I would dispute that for a moment, Ryder. Really? The definition of you at your best is entirely your poll numbers? Like how other
That
people
just sounds
like
like
you?
justification to me, like thinking errors.
I don't
Yeah.
like it because and you used the Walsh example. I was going to say Johnny Cash, but the same argument. So the best version of them is them destroying their lives and their bodies for our entertainment because we got more out of their art or we liked them more.
I mean,
That's them being at their
Case
best.
in point, when the Eagles reunited, they told him, they said, "Hey, we want you back, but you got to be sober."
Yeah.
And he's done several interviews. He's still sober to this day, but he's done several interviews where he basically said, like, I had to completely relearn how to play guitar.
Right.
And I had to, every night when I went on stage, it was a nightmare. It was
Terrifying, I bet.
terrifying. It was scary. I was making mistakes. And you know, it's just one of those things where you just kind of have to learn this skill
Right.
over again.
Well, and again, I dispute the definition
Yeah, I
that
agree
the
with
best
that, yeah.
version of you is what is best
Yeah.
for others.
To help
that my
others or-
drinking
yeah.
buddies enjoy me, that my friends approve of me, that everybody wants me at the party. That's
Yeah.
teenage thinking.
Well, because there's always somebody, there's always one person who will co-sign on all of your bullshit.
You'll always
Yeah.
find somebody that says, I like you best whenever we're both, like
Yeah.
got needles in our arms and we're
Right.
shooting
I was going to say, who does it matter? Like, who are
Right.
you talking about? Because it's like, if we're supposed to make people feel important and loved, like, I bet your mother or father out there are like, I love you sober.
this is a
I
good
want you to be
question.
sober. Like,
what if
so-
they like you as you are?
Yeah.
But also your health and also all the negative consequences that you said you experienced as a
Yes.
result of your drinking.
And I think
that's part of you not being like your best human is the absence of those negative consequences. So
Yep.
if the presence of those negative consequences but high poll numbers,
Yeah.
that is not you being the best human you can be. So I think there's a false equivalency here
Yeah.
that really opens the door to the medicine is the alcohol. If I take the alcohol, then I will automatically be liked by others. I'm really doing this as a gift to humanity. This is me being kind to others.
making sacrifices.
I don't agree with your logic, Ryder, because you have a right to be healthy. You have a right to be free of your disease. If you know that you have a disease of alcoholism or addiction, you have a right to be free of that, to not have to drink. You have a right. So I'm answering your question. You said, why am I sober? You're sober because you have a right to be better. You have a right to be healthy. You're sober because those negative consequences that have happened in your life scared the living shit out of you, and you are tired of living in a hellscape where you keep facing those negative consequences. You are sober because you got sick and tired of the cycle of always having to drink in order to live your life or to have any friendships. There are going to be things you lose by being sober. Mm-hmm. There are also things that you gain. And yes, at some point, everybody who goes on a journey of sobriety, they hit a point where they go, wow, if this is all being sober is, what the fuck is the point? Because, guess what? It doesn't feel as good as being high. It doesn't feel as good as being drunk. It's not Neverland. It's life on life's terms.
Yeah.
But in many ways, we are our best human self when we are no longer living enslaved to a chemical. And for some of us who have the disease of addiction, that's something we have to recognize is true for us. And if that's true for us, then that's the reason we don't do it.
And I think at the end of the day, I think the answer to this is you quit for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There was a reason. And I think it was a valid enough reason to do it in the first place. So it's probably still a valid enough reason to maintain it.
Yep.
Because it's in a lot of ways, it's kind of like it's the same as like relationships. Because we all have that, I think, at some point where like we kind of look back at a past relationship with somebody we broke up with and be like, oh, was that the right move? Should I have done that? What would life have been like if I didn't break up with
Probably
that person?
seemed rosier in your memory.
Yeah,
You're like,
exactly.
It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, but then you always have to remember, like, there was a reason you broke up with that person.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was probably a valid reason. You
Right.
need to give yourself some credit for making good decisions. When you make a good decision, own it.
Yeah.
And really like understand like, okay, well, I made something was going on with alcohol where I had to make that decision to quit.
Yep.
Whatever that was probably a good decision. And whatever that thing was that drove you to do it, it's still there. So if you go back to it, you can expect you're going to fall back into the same thing.
This is why one of my favorite interventions with early recovery is the breakup letter with your addiction, the message in a bottle. Like, write the letter to your future self, reminding them the day before you quit why you're
Wow.
quitting.
I
Because
bet
that way,
that's
when
awesome.
future self shows up and is like, you know what, I drink everything, like, I'll be fine, like, it'll be fine.
What a
I
great
miss being-
tool.
Why am I sober? They open that up and they read from themselves exactly what was going on, why that other version of me made this decision.
Oh, that's
and it is
great.
profound because they're like, oh, yeah, no, this sucked.
That's how bad I was feeling and what was going on in my
I don't
world.
want to do that again.
You know what I would do every once in a while is I would have clients then after they wrote that letter to their drug of choice, they would write one back from their drug of choice back to them.
Oh, yeah.
In response, write a response letter.
Baby, don't go.
Yeah, no, it was always.
We had the best time.
Yeah, you can blame it all on me.
It always kind of reminded me of like, what's the Leslie Chow from the Hangover movies? Like it always kind of had that tone, like,
Yeah.
of like, you'll be back.
Yeah.
We had such. I know it's fun. People get hurt. It's like,
Yeah, just reckless.
Yeah.
Doesn't give a shit. Yeah, the last thing I would say, writer, is just if you're not already, taking notes on this, or just, if you're looking for some feedback, because I know you don't have a therapist in your life right now, I'll tell you, my antenna were twitching when you said, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict, I've had negative consequences until recently, and I'm now drinking every other weekend. Apparently, drinking every other weekend has left enough room in your brain that slowly those neurons have gotten back enough control of the control room here to start asking questions of, hey, why are we even sober at all? And this is that half measures point. Like it's dangerous if you know that you have an addiction. Part of the reason that alcoholics and addicts, they come to the conclusion that one beer is too many is because the first one will lie and let in his friends. And they do not have the capacity to control it. Part of the definition of the disease, as Nick was talking about earlier, is the inability to limit or control the behavior. And so if for right now, you might be noticing, I'm good every other weekend. And then at some point, the addiction tries to negotiate, as it may be doing in your letter.
well, what happens then is like, then Thursday night becomes part of the weekend.
Yes. every other weekend, and then it's like, well,
and then
when
Monday's
every weekend?
like, well, Monday's part of the weekend.
It's Labor
too.
Day, so it's Labor Day weekend. You know,
right,
that counts for something. Yeah,
yeah.
it
First, you
always
start
finds
looking
room.
forward to that weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then that weekend starts getting a little bigger.
Yep.
You
Start planning everything
it all
around
goes
when
that
you're
way.
going to drink. You guys want to hang out? Let's hang out next weekend. But then you start going, oh, well, all my friends are hanging out at the bar this weekend. You know what? I'll skip next
make it
weekend.
this weekend.
I'll make
Yeah,
it this
yeah, yeah.
weekend. Now I'm running it back. And then it's like, well, I've lost my rhythm. Again.
It's the same reason
always
people
finds a
fall
way.
off their exercise program.
I was thinking about that already this whole time. I'm like food or like it's just one cheesy French fry.
I would also suggest on a sober day. This has to be on a sober day. If it is not the case that your friends are telling you, "Hey, you're better when you're drunk," which we're all kind of assuming that that's not the case. We're all kind of assuming that you think it's better when you're drunk. Go be around a couple of really drunk people while you're sober.
Yes. Yeah, that's great.
And just go look at it from that angle for just for an evening. Take
That's
an
always
evening,
fun.
And then
do
report
that.
back.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
awful.
It's just terrible.
Just if you're around just drunk people or fucked up people and
yeah.
you're sober,
Yeah.
it's oftentimes it's just the worst.
It's very unpleasant.
You realize how uncharming they are.
Now, the last thing I'll say with this, too, is I think I empathize with the challenges that you're verbalizing.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get that, and I agree, and I think those are actually real. Because what you're realizing is what everybody has to come to terms with in early recovery, is that when you're actively using, the rewards of actively using are immediate, and the consequences of active use are delayed.
Oh, good point.
And then when you get into recovery, that flip-flops. And so now the negatives of being sober are immediate,
Right.
and the rewards are long-term.
Right.
And that's what drives so many people back to using, is because it's hard, it's complicated, and you have to think long-term. You can't just focus on what I want right now. You're going to have to develop some new skills for dealing with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to develop some new skills for handling social situations. You're going to have to develop new skills for all of these different things.
Right.
It doesn't mean you can't do these. It just means that the quick, easy route is no longer an option for you.
Right.
So you're going to have to take the road less traveled, and it's going to be messy and it's going to be dirty, but that's the way to get it done and do it right. There's a way. There's thousands of ways to cheat the system, but that's why they're shortcuts and not the way, is because they don't pay off.
Right. Yeah. And I get the argument of like it's a performance enhancing drug, right? That for a lot of people, alcohol's their liquid courage. It's how they can go on dates. It's how they can have sex. It's how they can be social.
Yeah.
And they think, well, what am I supposed to do? Live my life without those things? Like, it is zero sum for some people. I get that. I really want you talking to a psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to explore your medicinal options. I don't like, especially it's one thing if somebody, whatever, has a cocktail on a date, they loosen up and like, that's fine for them. If they don't suffer from the disease of addiction, fine.
Yeah.
There's other people that can eat sugar and there's other people called diabetics who cannot, and so like, it is what it is.
And sometimes we do get caught up a lot in terms like, addiction, all of these terms, what is a disease and all of that stuff. Sometimes the easiest way to look at it is problematic.
There it is. Yeah.
Whether you define yourself as an addict, alcoholic, whether you feel like you've got the disease of addiction or you don't, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, does it cause problems? It obviously does, because you had to quit at one point before.
Right.
So,
yeah, worth
there we
taking
go.
it seriously. Great questions today. Really good ones.
Yeah.
Ryder, thank you so much for that. And as we get here to the end of the show, we just want to remind you that you can sign up for extra content at patreon.com/therapy. You get the extended show. You get it a day early. You get it ad-free. You get instant access to our live chat Discord community, which opens up a thread every week on the new episode where everybody chats and gives feedback to questions and relates and shares stories with each other. Oftentimes makes fun of us or takes issue with things we've said. That happens too. Everybody universally praises Whitney. She's polling very high right now.
Thanks, guys.
Nobody cares.
And girls.
And girls and theys.
And theys.
Everybody's.
All them.
So check it all out at patreon.com/therapy. And if you're at the Therapod and higher level, you get an extra episode every week. You get a Monday edition from Nick and I. It's deep dives on studies and book reviews and interviews and all sorts of interesting stuff that we have to present to start your week off on a psychology foot. So check it out, patreon.com/therapy. And we've got some new folks to welcome to the Theraparty. Who's new, Nick?
Justin Jelinek.
That feels right.
Jelinek.
Justin
Jelinek.
I want it to be Jelinek, but I will accept
Jelinek. I
Jelinek.
think that's right.
Because that E at the end makes that O long, right?
Yeah.
That feels right.
That sounds good.
And we've also got to welcome Kenneth Wong to the Therapod party.
Welcome.
Thank you all. And I see a note here that we're going to be thanking all. Oh, God, there they are.
It is the first of the month.
Wake up, wake up, wake up. It's the first of the month. Thank you, Newstick, Robert Paulson, Polygon, Colin, Scoopsternaut, Linda Brandmeier, Corey Owens, Joseph Pangrazio, Brad Kiefaver, Christine Phillips, Gavin Bristow, Carrie Terhark, Stacy Westerland, Scoopy Jess, Ian Whitefall, Kiwi Fruit Scoop, James K., Chelsea Saracen, Craig Little, Katie Chiwakowski, Don Dorr, Jim Hunter, Adam Rabiznik, Okie Scoop, Brooks Lyle, Matthew Nair, Take It EV Podcast, Todd Canfield, Felicia Butler, David Sorensen, Shayla Bullock, Scoopatron, Lauren Izzo, Stacy Coleman, Adam Petanuzzo, Mats Lenegren, Heather, Scoopiter Ascending, Ian Soto, Jessica Cyphers, That Josh Guy, Lee Popsicle, Dr. Scoop Little, Mama Ninja Scoop, James Dawson, Colson Morrow, Jacob Harrington, Sarah Olo, Grumpy Lake Mead Park Ranger, Sam Buck, Karen McCulloch, Megan Smith, Kate with an I, What Weekend, Some Nobody, Lila, Be Gay, Do Crimes, Kelly Gagner, BP, Nippy, Brian Emra, Drew Helligy, Alec Lancaster, who brought you the Jim's Weather song that you heard earlier, Matthew Johnson, A Literal Pickle, Matthias Vandebrandt, James Hubble, Max the Ginger Scoop, Ken Tinsley, Chemist Stacy, Protect and Scoop, Ulti Engi, Anonymous, Andreas Saavedra Molina, Cody, the DeLorean guy, Jim Mills, Smells Funny, Brady Malachek, Matt Kubik, Chad the Safety Lad, Walker Fluke, Philip Guyton, Tim Mystery, Almost Dr. Nurse Joy, Duffy, the slowly getting their therapist bear, Julius Capel, Christopher DeGursey, Kierkegaard, nailed it, Irvin Santon, Trisha Ortiz, Melissa Geisler, Nico, Joel McMillan, Kirsten Johnson, Laura B., DJ Stewart, Mississippi Hippie, Tiny Home Travelin', Scott A., Patty Glad, Chris Conway, Fifi, Eli, Heather W., Kyle, Todd Vroman, Christopher Aguirre, Anthony Camarada, Susie Kathleen, David Williams, Kate Palise, Freya Lawson, Joe Beth Bowers, Mark Orellana, Buddy Dobbins, Travis, Eric Dyer, Emma Kane, Starchky, Adam Warren, Trontastic, Mike V, Stephen Landon, Shai Ruparel, Elena, Kenneth Wong, and John Finlayson.
And thank you to our Therodactyls, Ice Blue Scoop, Brian Lehman, Scott Brady, Fred, Bashara, Jr., Andrea Anderson, Lindsay Bashara, Frozen Cusser, Lori Eltra, Ryan Stewart, Richard Bruins, Robert Ward, Chris, Cy Shonigan, Dank Butter, Andrew Langmead, Lovely Spark, Celeste Quintero, Pickett, Kirsten Robbins, TKO. Thank you.
We, of course, want to thank our partner, Dirty B, and our bosses, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of the fan club, those producers. We talking about Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, Smitty Scoop, Ben Don, Judy Schneider, Kayla Lansbury, Mrs. and Mr. Hot Dog Scoop, Malia, Leon Kassab, Cindy Ash, Mason Miller, Richard Macy, Carolyn Albert, Kevin Chamberlain, Tess Miller, Sammy Scoop, Ben Stanley slapping your face, Sarah Smith, Adam Hathaway, Byler T, University Jeff, Mike Helm, Paris, Samantha Cohn, Darren Cunningham, Lib, Team Monaco, Thunder, Cougar, Falcon Scoop, Matt and Lisa Tangeman, Heo, Oscar Swanrose, A Sunny Boy, Slurpy Kaye, motherfucker, Sandra McWaffle, Dan Martin, Hannah Marie, and Myra.
And if you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited,
And why wouldn't you?
and enjoy our spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy, and thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time we got for this week's session. I want to thank our landlords, Matt and Mattingly's Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to the show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, Pod Therapy isn't something to keep all to yourself. Share the episode. Tag us on the socials when you do. It's at PodTherapyGuys on Instagram and Twitter. It's /PodTherapy on Facebook. And don't forget about those goodies at patreon.com/therapy.
AOL keyword pod therapy.
Yeah.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously.
GeoCities.com/podtherapy.
PodTherapy.net.
Oh my gosh.
Or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangent.
I'm Whitney.
I'm Jim.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
GoJim.net.
Find us on
Don't
AOL
do
Instant
it.
Messenger.
Don't do it.
AOL I am.
That's going to be the next category of things
Oh,
we
do
have
you
to
have
get.
more of those?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, sweet.
Jim's excited.
Yeah. I'm up 3-2-2.
Uruguay, Guyana, Suriname, Paraguay.
Countries
I'll
that
have
Jim doesn't
Y.
know where they are.
Fuck, that's all.
I'm like, I'll have a wine.
Are they in South America?
How the fuck? I am so disappointed at the two of you. That Jim gets the
Did I get
geography
it?
question.
Oh, I wasn't even
Guyana.
thinking about what the real answer was.
I was like,